Good day, everyone. Welcome to the fourth lesson, Reading Strategies in Teaching Children and Adolescent Literature. My name is Dan Harold C. Abayon, and together with my co-discussants, we are going to talk about the reading strategies that we teachers can implement in teaching literature. So without further ado, let's go on to the first lesson. Okay, so let us first read the introduction for this lesson. So, reading children and adolescent literature helps students learn language and understand story structure, writing styles, and societal reflections within the text. It also allows teachers to emphasize moral lessons and character development, best achieved through a structured approach of pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading activities. Now, teaching literature can be a very fun way to teach students language acquisition. It can help build their vocabulary, making them understand the story much better. It can also allow them to get more familiar with the story structure, their writing styles, and not only are they able to reflect the story to society but also to themselves. But without properly teaching it, literature can become very boring. Students become disengaged, uninterested, and that is the last thing we teachers want to see in our students. And so, in this chapter, we will mainly discuss about these three techniques. Okay, so first off is the pre-reading techniques. Now, as for the definition, learning takes place when students are ready. Again, learning takes place when students are ready. That is according to Edward Thorndike. Pre-reading tasks prepare students, arouse their interest, and allow the teacher to provide background knowledge or information. Now, preparing students to read is very essential. Let's say that you are doing a demonstration. You're going to talk about plot, structures. Now, you have an example, a story. Now, as a teacher, do you just give them the story and let them read? No. According to Edward Thorndike, again, when students are ready, slowly introduce to them the topic, give them some background information, give them the author, who wrote that, give them any sort of background to prepare them to read the material. And these are the five strategies that we teachers can use to implement when preparing the students to read. Okay, so first off is previewing and predicting. Now here it says, students predict the text content using visual information and clues like title and illustrations. They preview the text to get the main idea. For picture books, they predict the content based on the illustrations. Now, for this technique, we let the students take a look at the title, headings and subheadings, or the illustrations. Words that students can quickly glance over to get the main idea on what the story is about. This technique gets the students thinking and allows them to be prepared to whatever they are about to read. Okay, for the second reading technique is skimming and scanning. Now here, students skim and scan the text to qualify and get an overview of its structure and content, using visual aids like labels, headings, and subheadings. After this quick survey, they create questions about what they want to learn from the story. So, very self-explanatory. Similar to previewing and predicting, in which students scan the contents of the reading material, here, after quickly scanning the structure, students create questions about what they want to know about the story or the reading material. We teachers can even write those questions down on the board so that after the reading, we can go back to the questions to see if they have been answered, making the reading much more enjoyable and more interactive for the students. Okay, so for the third technique is unlocking. So here it says, students identify and define unfamiliar words using strategies including synonyms, antonyms, and other word recognition techniques, connecting new vocabulary to prior knowledge. Now, so very self-explanatory. So this technique, the students identify and define unfamiliar words using synonyms, antonyms, and context clues. we as teachers can even write these unfamiliar words that the students are going to encounter in the reading material. Either we directly write the definition, or to make it more engaging, we can even put it in a sentence. Allow the students to guess, use context clues to guess the meaning of that certain unfamiliar word. Okay, so for the fourth reading technique, it is activating. So here it says, students take notes while reading. Teachers introduce the story's theme, prompting discussions of relevant personal experiences and presenting statements of quotations for students to analyze and respond to, activating prior knowledge and connecting it to the reading material. Now, this is a classic way of introducing the reading material to the students. The students taking notes while the teacher is explaining the theme of the reading material, asking questions if whether they have any prior experiences similar to the theme of the story. Let the students speak of their prior knowledge while we teachers all connect them all to the reading material. Okay, so the last pre-reading technique is making inference. So here it says, the students are asked to make inferences using the available information, such as the title, the pictures, the length of the reading material, and others. They will be asked to record and write their inferences as well as their pieces of evidence. Now, in this strategy, it allows the students to make educated guesses, asking them questions like, does this look familiar? Or are there any stories similar to this? Using what the students already know to encourage critical thinking, helping them to be more engaged more deeply with the reading material itself. Okay, so now we are done with the pre-reading techniques. Let us now move on to the during reading techniques. Now here, teachers should not leave the students to understand the reading material on their own. During reading, activities are needed to help the students process significant details about the story. Now, should we leave the students to read on their own? Again, should we leave the students to read on their own? No, of course not. So as facilitators of learning, we should constantly guide and monitor the students to ensure that they fully understand the contents of the reading material. And these 5 reading strategies will surely ensure to help in properly guiding the students during the reading process. Okay, so first up is active reading. Now, here, students read orally or individually or in groups, one paragraph at a time. This improves comprehension, connects spoken and written words, and build fluency and vocabulary. It also allows students to connect with the emotional content. Now, this is a great way for students to be actively engaging in the reading process, especially for those students who are not very interested in literature. They will be forced to always keep in mind on which part of the story they are, because it will come a time that it is their turn to read, which is a very great way for students to actively engage in the reading process. Not only that, but it can also help them acquire new vocabulary and fluency. Okay, so for the second technique, it is detailed reading. Now, here, students read silently after reading aloud. This allows for deeper processing of meaning without focusing on pronunciation. It encourages concentration and visualization of story. Students are also prompted to identify patterns, connections, and contradictions. Now, in this strategy, after reading aloud, the teacher asks the students to or tells the students to read silently while also identifying patterns, connections, and contradictions. Now, this strategy mainly focuses on understanding without distractions, because usually when students are to read aloud, they tend to focus more on pronunciation rather than trying to understand the entire content of what they are reading. So, with this strategy, the students will be able to understand the content more meaningfully. Okay, so the third technique is predicting outcomes. So here, students predict the story's conclusion based on the plot's events. They are encouraged to form their own conclusions. Now, this technique is a very fun way for the students to use their critical thinking and creative imagination, asking the what if questions. What if this would happen? What if that would happen? They put all of the things that have happened in the story, compile them so that they can think of the most possible and creative solutions or conclusions for them to make out of. Now let's move on to the fourth strategy in during reading, which is monitoring and clarifying. So here, the teacher strategically interrupts the reading to ask questions, ensuring comprehension through interaction with the text. This involves identifying key details like what, who, when, where, how, and why, the WH questions. Now, this strategy, the teacher intentionally interrupts the reading to ask questions. Let's say after they read the first paragraph of the story, you then ask, okay, students, who is the main character of the story? Or where did the story happen? You do all of this throughout the reading to ensure that the students fully understands the contents of the reading material. Okay, so now we are at the last part of the during reading techniques, which is paraphrasing. Now here, students periodically summarize or paraphrase sections of the text. This helps the teachers assess understanding and allows students to focus on key information and recall ideas. Okay, so paraphrasing involves students restating what they have read in their own words. So for this, allows teachers to see or hear how much they have understood by letting them paraphrase certain key sections of the text. Now, any parts that they have forgot or have trouble remembering and understanding, we fill in those gaps to ensure that they have fully understood the contents of the reading material. Okay, so that's the end of the during reading techniques. Next up is the post reading techniques, which will be discussed by my co-discussants. Thank you.
Good morning, Ma'am. My name is Jessamine T. Tagano, and my report is all about post-reading techniques. So, the use of post-reading techniques significantly enhances comprehension and allows for a more profound engagement with the text. They are valuable tools for both students and adults seeking to maximize their learning from reading. So, here are the techniques in post-reading. So, first is the summarizing. This involves identifying the most important information in a text and condensing it into a shorter and coherent version. Second is investigating story elements. So this technique focuses on analyzing the structural components of a narrative text, example, novel, short story, and etc. And the third one is inferring and drawing conclusion. This involves making logical deductions based on evidence presented in the text, even if that information isn't explicitly stated. The fourth one is analyzing and synthesizing. This is a two-stage process. First is analyzing, involves breaking down the text into its constituent parts, example, arguments, evidence, examples, and etc. And synthesizing involves putting those parts back together to create a unified understanding of the whole. And the fifth one is in visual organizing. This involves using visual tools, example, mind maps, flowcharts, diagrams, and etc. And last but not the least, recreating. This involves retelling or reenacting the story or information in a new format, and that would be thank you.
Good morning to each and everyone, especially to you, Ma'am. Good morning. I am Eugene Albacang, your topic presenter this morning. The topic that are we going to tackle this morning is about activity-based learning method. Activity-based learning method is an activity-based learning strategy in instructing English language using fiction or an active learning approach, where students are engaged in different activities that involve the use of language. Activity-based learning requires students to find opportunities to listen, read, talk, and write. This includes discussion, brainstorming ideas in pair or groups, story retelling, story completion, and conducting interviews, role play, and simulation activities, where the macro skills in English are integrated. These activities engage students in discovery, processing, and applying information, promote active learning and higher order thinking. Engaging different activities and increases motivation, retention, and collaboration among students. Activity-based learning method have many types. So first is discussion or brainstorming. The teacher asks the show pictures or title of the books and allows students to brainstorm ideas on what the book could be about based on the illustration. The target language skills is reading, listening, speaking, and grammar. So, the teachers provide guide question for discussion. Pairs or groups students read, discuss the text based on the guide question. They are given a chance to think of creative means of presenting or discussing the answer with the rest of the class. So this next is story retelling and story completion. So story retelling and story completion are very good strategies to enhance the macro skills of the students. So the target language skills is reading, listening, vocabulary, and speaking. After reading, students are given a chance to retell the story creatively. This is done through a video presentation, role play, creative reading, songwriting, or singing. For the story completion, the students are asked to write an alternative ending to the and present it into the class. This enhances their creativity and decision making. Next is conducting interview. Interview simulation is a way to gather information and research more about the text. The target language skills is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Before reading, the teacher uses the theme or concept of the text. Before reading, the teacher asks Before reading, the teacher uses the theme or concept of the text and assigns students to conduct an interview that is relevant to the theme or concept. After readings, the student may involve in interview with people who represent the character of the story or the subject of non-fictional prose. Last is simulation activities. Different simulation activities. Different simulation activities help the students to understand the reading materials better. The target language skills is reading, writing, speaking, viewing, and listening. So, simulation activities include presentation, panel discussion, talk show, news reporting, filmmaking, or other activities that help the students understand the concept or stories better, relate with them, and perform as an outcome of their learning. So that's all for my report. Thank you for listening.